So Kasthuri, thank you so much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
Good morning.
Good morning
Thank you
and
for having me.
great to have you on the show, Kasthuri. Before we walk into the future, can you please tell us a little bit about your background? So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal. That's where I grew up. I come from a working class, humble beginning.
And Kasthuri, can you tell us what was your dream career when you grew up?
That's such an interesting one. When I was much younger, before my teens, I actually wanted to be a teacher. So my poor family had to bear many moments of me trying to teach them with a chalkboard. But as I grew up and went into high school, I discovered the accounting profession. I had more of an affinity towards finance rather than arts or sciences. And so once I learned about the accounting profession, that resonated with me. And I set my ambition of becoming a chartered accountant. And then there's, as you know, a very specific pathway to that qualification. And that's the route that I followed.
And can you tell us who inspired you in your early days?
I mean, in my early days, I would say my dad. My dad believed in me unconditionally, and he always encouraged me to further my studies. He used to say to me that people can steal your money, but they could never steal your education. And so was always, driving me to improve my knowledge and my education. And also, I would say, instilled in me the values of work ethic and dedication, and really wanted me to be financially independent, and consistently said to me that I could do anything that I put my mind to. And really, he had an imagination of me being successful, and really wholeheartedly backed me and was so vested in seeing me being successful.
Now, Kasthuri, I believe you started your career at Deloitte, right?
That's correct.
And then you spent 7 years at Soul City. Can you tell us a little bit more about Soul City?
So Soul City is a not-for-profit organization that focuses on social justice for young women. When it started off, it was more a health and development communication organization, really using social and behavior change to drive some of the changes that we needed to see, particularly at the time. Obviously, a focus was HIV, given the prevalence when Soul City started, but it has now evolved to be more around, addressing injustice with respect to gender from a gender perspective, and trying to empower and drive and uplift women.
And today you're leading South Africa's foremost entrepreneurship accelerator, Harambee. Can you tell us about Harambee and what is it that you're doing, and what's your vision for the future?
Sure. So Harambee, as the name actually suggests, is a youth employment accelerator. And we are a not-for-profit social enterprise that partners with business, government, civil society, and young people themselves to innovate solutions that can tackle the challenge of youth unemployment in South Africa at a scale large enough to make a difference. There are currently 9 million young people not in employment, education, or training. And every year, there's about another million young people that enter the labor market, and roughly 2/3 will end up not in employment, education, and training as well. So at Harambee, we look at these young people, 9 million, with potential and talent that is lost to the economy and the country. And so our focus is really on how do we break the barriers to inclusion and access for these young people, and how do we unlock earning opportunities. Since our inception over the last 13 years, together with our partners, we have enabled 1 million, over 1.3 million earning opportunities for young people. And in terms of our vision to 2026, we have set a goal of enabling the next 1 million earning opportunities in just 3 years by 2026, always together with our partners. And the last thing I'll say is that Harambee is an anchor partner in the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, which is a national coordinated strategy and program to address youth unemployment in the country across multi-sector stakeholders.
Now, Kasthuri, how does a chartered accountant become a philanthropist? Can you tell us, and maybe looking back over your career, was there a turning point or maybe a number of turning points?
I would say a number of turning points. Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, I qualified as a chartered accountant, but I think I always knew for me it was not just about the numbers and balancing the books. For me, what really inspired and motivated me was people and doing impact-driven work. So I would say the first kind of pivot, as you mentioned, I started my career at Deloitte and I served my traineeship with Deloitte and I stayed on at Deloitte. So my first kind of entry into the development sector was whilst I was at Deloitte, where I started doing a bit of work, advisory work, as well as audit work, in fact, for clients in the development sector. And my sort of, I would say my most significant shift and pivot into this world was actually when I left Deloitte after 10 years and went to one of my clients, which is Soul City, which we've spoken about before. And I joined Soul City as the CFO then. And after a few years as CFO, I then transitioned into the CEO role. So I would say that was another big inflection point for me because firstly, it was the shift from, if I reflect now, it was the shift from, from a Deloitte to a Soul City. And then in parallel to that, it was the shift from a purely finance career to a more kind of, CEO type of role. And of course, my last pivot and shift was then significant one was into Harambee, where I started off as the FD as well, and then transitioned into the CEO role. It's my third year now.
And Kasthuri, you've probably got the toughest job in the country. You're tackling the biggest crisis, youth unemployment, 2/3 of our youth not being employed. What is it that motivates you? What is it that keeps you going? What is it that's driving you every day?
I would say, Nick, let me share three perspectives of what's driving me today. And I guess they're all people related. I think, firstly, as you say, it's one of the biggest issues. I'm driven by and humbled by the opportunity to be one of the many change leaders that drives significant and positive enduring change in the country through my work at Harambee. As I mentioned to you, being able to unleash the potential of those 9 million young people would say that I draw inspiration from the young people that we serve. Despite their circumstances, you would just be amazed at their extraordinary resilience and optimism, and they have such a strong desire to be productively engaged in the economy. We really just need to back them with intentional investment and support. And then I would also say, not only do I get to do that work, but I get to do it with the most phenomenal leaders and teams. I mean, to be on this journey with them, they are just the most amazing people. It's for me, it's not only, the why and the what and the how I'm doing it, but it's the who I'm doing it with. And I think just working with people that are super talented, but that really bring their heads, their hands, and their hearts to work every day, which truly creates a sort of magical values-based culture within the organization. Of course, we have our challenges. Like you said, we're dealing with an seemingly intractable problem, but I feel privileged as I sit here and chat to you today to do work that feeds my soul. And I think the last thing I would say is that the other thing that drives me is being a role model to my really awesome 18-year-old daughter, who certainly keeps me grounded.
Great. Thank you so much, Kasthuri. Now, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it is a big question. We all wish we could have a crystal ball, right? I think the future of leadership means a few things. I think it means building leaders that are adaptable, and I'll come back to that and talk about that just now. For me, it means inclusion is big, being empathetic, being values-driven, embracing the significant changes around us like AI. So the future of leadership is really being grounded, being a visionary, but also sort of just looking ahead and just also thinking, being very people-centric. And I think that was something that we learned during COVID, right? As much as we're obviously going to embrace AI and technological advancements, at the heart and at the core, my view is that the future of leadership has to be human-centric if we're going to successfully navigate some of the challenges that we're going to face. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that just now as well.
Absolutely. And looking back over your own leadership journey, Kasthuri, what have you learned that you consider most important for building future leaders? In other words, what do we have to do more to develop future leaders and to encourage future leaders?
I think, interestingly, we've been talking a lot at Harambee recently about change. And I think that we all are familiar with IQ, EQ, and SQ. And we've been saying, actually, there's a new Q on the block, and it's AQ, and it's adaptability quotient. So I think this ability to be change adept, to navigate change and complexity is definitely going to be important for our future leaders. I think already we're seeing, I happen to work in an impact, driven space, a purpose-driven space, but even if you take corporate, you will see that stakeholders, including the workforce, are becoming more and more discerning. So I think leading, not only in terms of the mission and the vision of a particular organization, but even in a corporate space, leading to drive transformative impact and change is going to be very important to future leaders. So it's not just going to be about profit, it's about finding the alignment between profit and purpose. And personally, I feel those are not mutually exclusive.
Absolutely. Now, as you said, we are living in challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter and hopefully overcome in their career?
I think, we've kind of touched on it, but I think that future leaders are obviously going to navigate complex issues. I think the rapid change of pace, I think we are already seeing that. I think we live in a time of great transition and volatility. I think obviously significant technological advancements like AI. I think they're also going to have other disruptions, major disruptions like COVID. I think that we live in a nanosecond world, right? So it's about technology and it's about always being on. So I think that they're going to have to learn to embrace and be intentional about creating new ways of working to enable more of a work-life integration. And of course, the globe has become a lot smaller. So it's about consistently building your skills, working on self, and really doing the work to grow new skills and reinvent yourself.
And Kasthuri, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are maybe one or two key skills you would like to factor in and maybe teach?
Nick, I would say that it's actually a combination of skills, mindsets, and behaviors. I think if I just touch on a few of those elements, I would say, firstly, I would want to create a curriculum that enables leaders to believe in themselves and be confident about their abilities. And that does require work on yourself, right? That does require having a growth mindset, embracing every opportunity to learn, doing the work on yourself. Like I say, being open to embracing new and different pathways. You spoke about the pivot in my own pathway. And really just, believing in yourself, but also I think backing yourself with the work ethic, being prepared to bring your A game to work and autographing your work with excellence and really being okay with pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And like I mentioned, it is about people and being human-centric and leading with authenticity, humanity, and humility, and sort of, learning how to manage complexity, how to lead through uncertainty, I think are going to be critical skills. So I think apart from your technical competence, for me, even today at Harambee, when we look at leadership competencies, it is that ability to adapt, to manage complexity, lead through uncertainty, because then that does enable you to pivot, embrace new pathways. And I think also just building self-awareness, and that's hard for us as humans, because one of the key ways of doing that is about feedback and giving and receiving feedback, but that's what enables growth, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Kasthuri, as a mentor to so many future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two when you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yes, I would love to. I mean, as I said to you, for me, I'm very passionate about growing and developing talent and people. And also because I firmly believe that's my role as a leader. And I think, Nick, I want my legacy not to be measured just by my own achievements, but by the success of others. And for me, what's fundamental to me is lifting others as I rise. So I'm really excited to share the story of Sudika Sekanyela. Sudika joined Harambee about 10 years ago as the finance manager when I was the financial director at the time. She then transitioned into a role which enabled her to partner with me on more strategic finance initiatives that weren't part of the sort of core to day-to-day work. And when I was appointed as CEO, as I said, she then became my chief of staff. And I think for me, her journey just reflects the power of what's possible for an individual when you believe in them. And I really believe in her. I believe she has exceptional work ethic. We've obviously, over the years, through many, many coaching and often courageous conversations, we've built deep connection and, of course, high trust and mutual respect. And I think it hasn't stopped. I mean, during her tenure as chief of staff, I have consistently given her opportunities that would stretch her capabilities, enable her to learn new skills, enable her to build her confidence. And as I sit here chatting to you today, I think it's just been so inspiring and rewarding and amazing to see her succeed, grow into those different roles. She's built her brand within the business, and she stepped into this senior leadership space and is having impact within the business. And I feel that, we spoke about a comfort zone earlier. They say that magic happens when you step out of your comfort zone. And I can confidently say that's what's happened to Sudika. And today she continues her journey to awaken the giant within her, as they say. And I just feel that my role as a leader is to enable her to be the best that she can be. And sometimes that means taking her into a space where she doesn't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. And I just reflecting on that story just shows me the power of that, Nick.
And Kasthuri, looking back over your own leadership journey, are there any role models of leadership that you have encountered and maybe worked with that you feel future leaders should learn from?
Personal choice, and it's because obviously everybody has different styles. And I would say, just from my own experience, my advice would be to actually build a circle of support for yourself, both from within and outside the ecosystem you operate. And I'll say a little bit more about what I mean there. I feel that you need to obviously firstly find mentors who have been where you want to go and learn from them. I think you need to identify those leaders who you have a deep connection and high trust with, and ensure that one of those are your accountability partner and the truth teller of sorts. Somebody who will be comfortable sharing your blind spots with you, and somebody who you respect and trust enough to hear that feedback from. Because as I said, self-awareness is critical, and you need that 360 feedback, and that could be your peers. I would also say get an external coach. I think that's critical to have somebody that helps you get back up onto the balcony and pause and reflect and look inwardly. And I mean, as you're aware, Nick, there are tons of leadership gurus out there, and I would say find somebody, a few that you identify with. And it depends on where you're at in your journey and what skill you're trying to build, what muscle you're trying to build. I mean, there's Robin Sharma that personally I've read his works, Brene Brown, Anthony Robbins, Jay Shetty. There's lots of content out there. Of course, now with online, it's so much more accessible. For me personally, one of the publications and is, of course, the Harvard Business Review, because they generally tend to headline, key leadership gurus, and it's easier to find. You don't really have to search that hard. So for me, I would say a combination of all of that, not necessarily one. And for me, what's really helped me is having this circle of leaders and mentors and coaches and peers, even not just an individual, as well as these external gurus in the market. But fundamentally, it's about making that commitment to lifelong learning.
Absolutely. Now, Kasthuri, how can our listeners connect with you, and where should they follow you?
I mean, I think I would say predominantly on LinkedIn at this stage. I haven't gotten I haven't evolved to your phase, Nick, where you're actually doing this in terms of podcasts, etc. LinkedIn and published articles from time to time, obviously, given my core focus is about unlocking and unleashing young potential and talent, and particularly South African youth. From time to time, I do publish articles.
And last but not least, Kasthuri, what is your advice for the millions of learners out there who are looking to matriculate, start a career? What are maybe one or two success principles that they should keep in mind?
I mean, in terms of learners that are out there and looking to start their careers, I would say definitely having this growth mindset, embracing every opportunity to learn and grow, believing in yourself, but backing yourself with the work ethic, and knowing that every work experience counts and helps to grow your employability. And from a leadership perspective, Nick, the one thing that I wanted to share with you that I was reflecting on, you must have heard the saying, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yeah.
And if I reflect on that, I think for me that underscores the importance of leadership in determining the ongoing success, health, sustainability of any organization, government, project, initiative, or even community. And I think that's why great leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. So I think as a leader, make it your top priority to invest your energy, your focus, your efforts on growing, developing, and empowering the next generation of leaders. Create an enabling environment and a culture of learning so that you can build that leadership pipeline. And as I say, unleash talent and potential, and then step aside. And I think that, it doesn't take a title to be a leader. There's obviously all forms of leadership, but even coming back to close out on your comment around young people starting their careers, it's also about just embracing, like I said, that space to learn and grow and evolve, and to do it with humility.
Thank you. Thank you, Kasthuri, for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership. And thank you for building the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nick.